"Mommy, it's so cold, do you think she'll wake up if we talk louder?" The voice is small, trembling, the kind that doesn't belong in a cemetery. Mist curls around the gravestones like pale fingers. Two little boys, no older than 6, sit huddled against a marble headstone, their knees tucked beneath threadbare coats. One clutches a cracked photo, the other keeps blowing on his frozen hands, trying to warm them. The inscription behind them gleams faintly under the moonlight. Grace Ward, beloved wife and light of many. The wind moans through the trees, carrying the soft scrape of dry leaves. Somewhere in the distance, an owl calls. The younger twin, smaller, with tangled curls and wide, frightened eyes, leans closer to the stone. "Mommy, please wake up," he whispers again. "You promised we wouldn't be alone." The older boy shushes him gently. "She's sleeping," he says, though his voice breaks on the word. "Maybe she's dreaming of us." From the shadows of the narrow path, Ethan Ward stops walking. His hand tightens around the bouquet of white roses he always brings. His breath clouds in front of him, a sigh that never quite escapes. He's been coming here every week for 2 years, always at dawn, when the world is quiet enough to pretend she might still answer. But this morning, someone else is talking to her. He squints through the fog, thinking at first the figures are shadows or tricks of light. But then one boy lifts his head, and the weak gleam of the street lamp hits his face, pale cheeks smudged with dirt, lips trembling blue from the cold. Children. At this hour? Ethan's throat tightens. He takes a hesitant step closer. The gravel crunches beneath his polished shoes. Both boys flinch and turn toward him, eyes wide, like small animals caught between fear and hope. "What are you doing here?" His voice sounds sharper than he intends. The boys shrink back against the stone. The older one swallows hard, pulling the younger into his arms protectively. We're talking to our mommy." Ethan blinks. What?" The child points at the headstone behind him. "Her. Mommy Grace." Ethan's heart skips. Grace. His Grace. The wind picks up, tugging at his coat. He stares at the boys, confused, unnerved. "Who told you that was your mother?" "She did," the smaller one says, nodding earnestly. "She said if she couldn't wake up, we should come find her here." Ethan's fingers go slack, the roses slip from his grasp, scattering across the damp earth. "She said that?" he murmurs. The older twin nods. "Before she got too sick. She said Mrs. Ward would help us. She said the lady here was our angel." Ethan's pulse pounds in his ears. He looks at the headstone, at Grace's engraved smile and the photograph inset above her name, then back at the boys. Their faces are pale, streaked with tears, but there's something achingly familiar about them. The way the younger one's nose wrinkles when he sniffles. The way the older rests his hand protectively on his brother's shoulder, just like Grace used to do to calm him. He takes a step closer, crouching to their level. "Where's your mother now?" The boys exchange a look, silent, heavy. Finally, the older whispers, "She's sleeping too. But not here." A shiver runs down Ethan's spine that has nothing to do with the cold. The fog thickens, muffling the world until there's only the quiet breathing of the boys and the steady hammer of his own heart. For the first time in 2 years, the graveyard doesn't feel empty. It feels alive, haunted not by death, but by a promise he doesn't yet understand. He looks again at the marble, his wife's name shining faintly beneath the mist. And as the boys press closer to the stone, whispering, "Good night, Mommy Grace," a single thought slices through his disbelief, sharp and cold as the dawn air. How could they know her name? The hospital room hums softly, machines breathing in place of the woman who no longer can. Ethan stands by her bed, still gripping the cooling hand of Clara Hayes, the stranger who somehow knew his wife. The boy's quiet sobs fill the sterile air. The younger curls against her arm, whispering, "Mommy, please don't go." The older one, trying to be brave, keeps his gaze on the floor, jaw trembling. Ethan's chest feels heavy, not with pity, but recognition. He's seen grief before. His own. The nurse enters quietly, checking the monitor. "She's gone," she says softly, eyes glancing toward the twins. "They've been in and out for days. No family, no address. She just kept asking for Mrs. Ward." Ethan looks at her in disbelief. "You're sure she said Mrs. Ward?" "Yes, sir. And she mentioned something about a promise, something your wife made before she died." The words sink like stones. Another promise? Grace had been gone 2 years, how could she still be reaching out from the grave? He kneels beside the boys. "Listen to me. I'm sorry about your mother." His voice falters as both pairs of eyes lift toward him, wet and red. "Do you have anyone else? A family? A place to go?" The older shakes his head. "Just Mommy. She said Mrs. Ward would take care of us." Ethan's throat tightens. "And you came to the cemetery because..." The smaller boy answers, sniffling, "Because she said if we ever got lost, we'd find Mommy Grace where the angels sleep." Grace's grave. He shuts his eyes, fighting the sting there. He can almost hear his wife's voice, gentle, persuasive, unstoppable. "Ethan, if I can help them, I must." He used to laugh at that. "You can't save the world, Grace." Now, looking at these boys, her promise made flesh, he's not laughing. The nurse touches his arm. "Sir, they'll have to go into state custody soon. If you want, you can stay while social services." "No," he cuts in quietly. "They're coming with me." The nurse blinks. "Sir, that's..." "I'll handle it." He fishes out his ID, the kind that makes people stop arguing. "Ethan Ward. You can contact legal in the morning." She hesitates, then nods. "They'll need clothes, food. I'll take care of it." He turns back to the twins. "Come on, boys. Let's get you warm." They follow him like shadows through the corridor, small, barefoot, silent. Outside, dawn spills gold across the parking lot. Ethan opens the car door and gestures them in. The older one hesitates. Are we in trouble?" Ethan shakes his head. "No. You're safe now." The boy studies him, then climbs in. The younger rests his head against the seat, already drifting toward sleep. As Ethan drives, the city begins to stir, vendors setting up stalls, joggers on sidewalks, sunlight crawling across glass towers. His reflection stares back at him in the windshield, a man who spent years running from his wife's dreams, now chasing them in the faces of 2 orphans. He exhales. "She told you about Mrs. Ward," he says softly. "Did she ever say how they met?" The older boy frowns, trying to remember. "At the clinic. Mommy said Mrs. Ward brought her food when we were babies. She used to come every week with books and blankets." Ethan glances at the rearview mirror. "What else did she tell you?" "She said Mrs. Ward promised that if anything bad happened, she'd make sure we were never alone." A long silence. The hum of the tires becomes the only sound. Grace's handwriting flashes in his memory. The journal entries he'd never finished reading, the donations she made without his approval. He remembers one entry that puzzled him. Clara Hayes, twins, 6 months old. She'll need more help than the foundation can offer. He hadn't thought much of it then. Now it feels like a doorway opening into everything he never bothered to see. He grips the steering wheel tighter. "Did your mother ever mention my wife, before she passed?" The older twin nods. "She said Mrs. Ward was her angel. She said if angels have husbands, they must be kind too." Ethan swallows a lump in his throat. Kind. He hadn't been kind in a long time. Not since Grace's accident. Not since he blamed her for caring more about strangers than about him. He glances at the two small faces in the mirror, the trust there is unbearable. When they reach his estate, the guards at the gate look stunned. No one else has entered those gates in months. The iron bars swing open slowly, revealing the sprawling mansion at the hill's crest, its windows still dark. Inside, the house smells faintly of dust and lavender polish. The boys look around in awe, marble floors, chandeliers, portraits of a smiling woman they recognize immediately. "That's her," whispers the younger twin. "Mrs. Ward." Ethan follows their gaze to Grace's portrait above the grand staircase. She's laughing in the photo, sunlight in her hair, eyes alive. The sight hits him like a memory he's been avoiding. The older boy steps closer, tracing the frame with his finger. "She looks happy." "She was," Ethan says softly. "She always was." He gestures toward the kitchen. "Come. You must be starving." They eat quietly, toast, scrambled eggs, orange juice. The older insists his brother eat first. Ethan watches them, a knot of guilt and admiration forming in his chest. Grace would have loved them, he thinks. She would have sat right here, laughing at their stories, making them feel at home. After breakfast, he finds himself standing by her piano. The lid is dusty. He opens it, pressing one key, a single note that lingers in the air like a heartbeat. He remembers her voice again, faint but clear. "Ethan, promise me, if I'm ever gone, don't stop caring for the people who need us most." He'd promised nothing then. Now, it feels as though the universe is demanding an answer. Behind him, the older twin speaks. "Mr. Ward?" Ethan turns. The boy holds out a small silver locket, tarnished, cracked. "Mom said this belonged to Mrs. Ward. She gave it to her a long time ago." Ethan's hand trembles as he takes it. He flips it open. Inside, a photograph of Grace holding a newborn, smiling at the camera. On the back, etched faintly, are the words. "For Clara and her angels, love, Grace." Ethan sinks into the nearest chair, staring at the image. The boys watch him silently. "She knew you," he murmurs, almost to himself. "She really knew you." The realization settles deep. Grace had woven her compassion through lives he'd never met, binding them all together with invisible thread. And now, two of those threads had found their way back to him. The fog outside the window begins to clear, sunlight spilling into the room. Ethan closes the locket and whispers to the air, maybe to Grace, maybe to himself. "All right. I understand now. You kept your promise, and now it's my turn." End of section 3, The Promise of the Stranger. Would you like me to continue to section 4, Empathy Expansion, The Shelter of the Heart, next? The mansion had not heard laughter in years. It had heard footsteps, the click of polished shoes, the hollow echo of a life lived too quietly, but never laughter. Now, as sunlight creeps through the tall windows, Ethan Ward stands at the kitchen doorway watching two small boys devour toast and jam as though it were the finest meal in the world. The younger one, Noah, hums between bites, sticky fingers leaving prints on the table. The older, Liam, keeps pushing the plate toward him. "Eat slower," he murmurs. "You'll choke." Ethan folds his arms, an involuntary smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. "There's more if you're still hungry," he says. Both boys freeze mid-bite, eyes wide as though he's offered them treasure. Noah swallows hard. "Really?" "Really," Ethan nods. In this house, nobody goes hungry. For a heartbeat, he catches a glimpse of Grace's face in the reflection of the glass cabinet. The same gentle expression she wore whenever she comforted frightened children. He clears his throat, busying himself with the coffee maker. "After you eat, we'll find some clothes that fit. Then, we'll see what to do next." Liam glances up. "Can we stay here?" The question pierces him. "For now," Ethan says softly. Until we figure things out. Later, as the morning brightens, the housekeeper, Mrs. Dahlia, arrives. Her mouth falls open when she spots the twins sitting cross-legged on the marble floor, playing with a bowl of marbles. "Mr. Ward," she whispers, incredulous. "Are those?" Ethan offers a faint smile. "Guests." Her eyebrows shoot up. "Small guests, sir." "Yes. Temporarily." Mrs. Dahlia has served the Wards for 20 years. She knows when not to ask questions. Instead, she sets about making warm soup, muttering soft endearments in Spanish as she passes the boys cookies. They beam up at her, and the sound of their thank yous fills the cavernous kitchen like birdsong. Ethan lingers in the doorway, feeling something unfamiliar tighten in his chest, warmth mixed with ache. That evening, rain begins to fall. The boys have been given clean clothes from the storage closet, Grace's donations from past charity drives. They fit loosely but not badly. Ethan stands by the fireplace, a book in hand, watching the flicker of flames. Grace's photo still sits on the mantel, surrounded by lilies that Mrs. Dahlia refreshes every week. Noah climbs onto the couch beside him. "Mr. Ward?" "Yes." "Did Mrs. Ward really like helping people?" Ethan nods, setting the book aside. "She did. More than anything. She helped Mommy," Noah says. "Mom said Mrs. Ward brought her medicine when the doctor wouldn't." Ethan listens, his throat tight. "That sounds like her. She told Mommy," Noah continues, "that angels are just people who don't stop caring even when it hurts." Ethan blinks rapidly, pretending to rub his eyes. "She said that?" The boy nods solemnly. "So maybe Mrs. Ward's an angel now." From the other couch, Liam adds quietly, "Mom said angels send people to help you when you're lost." Ethan stares into the fire. "Maybe they do." The rain taps gently against the tall windows. For a long time, none of them speak. Later that night, Ethan finds himself in Grace's old study, the one he hasn't entered since her death. Dust veils the bookshelves. On the desk, a half-finished letter rests beneath a dried flower. He lifts it carefully. "If anything happens to me, please make sure Clara Hayes and her boys are safe. They remind me of what we're fighting for." Ethan closes his eyes. She knew she might not come home. He folds the letter, sliding it into his pocket. In the hallway, he hears laughter, two small voices chasing each other down the corridor. Mrs. Dahlia scolds gently, but she's laughing too. For the first time since the funeral, this house sounds alive. He leans against the doorframe, watching. The twins dart past him, one clutching a pillow like a sword. Noah giggles, Liam rolls his eyes but smiles anyway. Ethan says, "Careful. Those steps bite if you fall." Noah skids to a halt, eyes wide. "Steps can bite. Only if you don't listen to grown-ups." Liam bursts out laughing. It's the first time Ethan's heard that sound from him, a pure, unguarded laugh. It stirs something deep inside him. When bedtime comes, the boys hesitate outside the guest room. Noah clutches his stuffed bear, a frayed thing Grace must have given Clara years ago. "It's too quiet," he says. Ethan pauses. "Would you like the door open?" The boy nods. He leaves it ajar and sits on the edge of the bed. "Grace used to tell stories at night," he says softly. "Would you like one?" Both boys nod eagerly. He clears his throat, searching his memory. Grace had dozens, fairy tales and fables from her travels. He picks one she loved. "There once was a boy," he begins, "who found a broken bird with one wing. Everyone told him to leave it, that it couldn't fly again. But he carried it home, fed it every day. And one morning, when he opened the window, the bird flew away, higher than before. The boy thought he'd lost it, but every sunrise, it came back and sang to him." Noah's eyelids droop. Did he ever see it again? Every morning, Ethan whispers. He just had to look up. By the time he finishes, both boys are asleep, one hand resting on the other's. Ethan watches them for a long moment, then quietly switches off the lamp. In his own room, he lies awake staring at the ceiling. Grace's voice drifts through his thoughts again. Don't let your heart go silent when mine stops. He turns toward her photograph on the nightstand. I didn't listen, he murmurs. But maybe. I can now. Rain softens to drizzle. Somewhere down the hall, a door creaks open, followed by small footsteps. Noah appears at the doorway, rubbing his eyes. Mr. Ward. I had a bad dream. Ethan gestures gently. Come here. The boy climbs onto the bed, curling up against his side like it's the most natural thing in the world. Ethan hesitates, then rests a hand over his small shoulder. It's okay, he says quietly. You're safe. The boy mumbles something, half asleep, half awake. Ethan leans closer. She said, thank you. He freezes. Who? Mrs. Ward, Noah whispers. She said thank you for keeping her promise. Ethan's eyes sting. He stares at the dark window until his vision blurs, the weight of the world pressing and easing at once. Maybe Grace is still here, woven into the walls, into these children, into the quiet pulse of compassion she left behind. He lies awake long after Noah drifts off, the boy's soft breathing filling the silence Grace once owned. By morning, sunlight spills across the curtains. Ethan wakes to the faint sound of laughter again, the kind that stretches through a house like dawn through clouds. Downstairs, he finds Liam teaching Noah how to spread jam without spilling, both of them talking to Mrs. Dahlia like they've lived here forever. When they see him, they grin. Good morning, Mr. Ward. Ethan stands in the doorway, unsure how to respond. For years, he's been greeted only by silence. Now, he smiles back. Good morning, boys. He reaches for the coffee pot. Grace's cup sits beside it, her favorite porcelain mug with the chipped rim. He pours coffee into it anyway. The boys watch curiously. She used to drink from this, he says. Said it reminded her not to throw away something just because it's cracked. Liam tilts his head. Like people. Ethan looks at him for a moment, then nods. Exactly like people. For the first time, he feels the truth of Grace's philosophy settle inside him, not as guilt, but as peace. He doesn't know what comes next. He doesn't know what he'll tell the world. But as he watches the twins eating breakfast beneath Grace's sunlight, he knows one thing for sure. For the first time since she died, his house, and his heart, are alive again. The next morning arrived quiet, too quiet. A fog had settled over the hills again, thick and unmoving. Ethan woke before dawn, not to the sound of laughter or footsteps, but to the uneasy feeling that something had shifted overnight. Downstairs, Liam sat at the kitchen table, small hands gripping a folded paper cup of cocoa. His face was pale. Where's your brother? Ethan asked. In the car, Liam said softly. He wants to go see Mommy. Ethan felt his stomach twist. He hadn't been to the hospital since the night Clara died. The doctors had told him there was nothing more they could do. But the boys didn't understand finality, they only knew she'd been sleeping. He crouched down beside Liam. You know your mother might not wake up, right? Liam nodded, eyes glistening. But we still have to say goodbye. The hospital looked smaller than before. Maybe it was the light, gray and dim behind the clouds, or maybe it was the way Ethan's heart dragged him down with every step. Inside, the halls smelled of antiseptic and wet shoes. Noah clutched his teddy bear so tightly it seemed strained. They climbed the stairs to the quiet ward, past tired nurses and flickering bulbs, until they reached room 417. Ethan hesitated at the doorway. The bed was stripped bare. The window curtains were open, and the machines were gone. The nurse recognized them immediately. "Mr. Ward," she said gently. "They moved her this morning." Ethan's pulse stuttered. "Moved her?" She lowered her voice. "To the chapel." The chapel was small, its air heavy with incense and silence. Candles flickered near the altar. Clara lay there now, dressed in white, her hands folded around a rosary. Noah ran ahead before Ethan could stop him. He reached her side, his little hands shaking her arm. "Mommy, wake up. We came back. Mr. Ward brought us." Ethan froze at the threshold. The nurse's hand rested lightly on his arm, but it did nothing to steady him. "She was gone before sunrise," the nurse murmured. Peacefully. Noah didn't hear her. He kept whispering, desperate now. "Mommy, please. You said we wouldn't be alone. You said." His voice broke. Liam sank to his knees beside the pew, burying his face in his sleeve. Ethan moved without thinking. He knelt between them, gathering both boys close. Their sobs soaked through his coat, each one slicing through him like glass. "I'm so sorry," he whispered. "I'm so sorry." The smaller boy looked up, eyes red. "You can fix things, can't you? You're rich." Ethan's heart shattered. "Not this," he said softly. "Not this." The words hung in the still air. Then, quietly, Noah laid the teddy bear beside his mother's folded hands. "She said Mrs. Ward would take care of us," he whispered. Ethan swallowed hard, his throat raw. "She did. And she was right." He reached for their small hands and held them tight. "You have my word. I'll keep her promise." They stayed there a long time. The chapel lights dimmed as afternoon faded. Rain tapped gently against the stained glass windows. Ethan found himself staring at the cross above the altar, thinking of Grace's grave, of her unshakable faith in kindness. Clara's still face reminded him of Grace's on that final day, in the wreckage, eyes closed, lips curved in faint peace. Different women, same light. When the boys had cried themselves quiet, Ethan helped them stand. "Say goodbye," he said softly. They each kissed their mother's hand. Liam whispered something, too soft to catch, and Noah said, "See you when we fly, Mommy." Ethan's breath caught at that. "When we fly." Grace used to say that to him, too, whenever they watched planes take off from their balcony. He blinked fast and looked away. At the hospital reception, paperwork waited. The nurse handed him a small envelope. "She left this," she said. "For you." Ethan turned it over. His name was written in careful, shaky cursive, to Mr. Ward. Inside was a short note. "Mrs. Ward told me once that love never ends, it only changes homes. If you're reading this, please let her promise live on in you. The boys are good. They just need someone to believe they're worth the trouble. Thank you for coming. Clara Hayes." Ethan folded the letter with trembling hands. "She really believed Grace would send me." The nurse smiled faintly. "She said your wife never broke her word." He nodded, eyes burning. "Neither will I." The ride home was silent except for the steady whisper of rain. The boys sat close in the back seat, clutching each other's hands. Ethan didn't speak, words were useless things tonight. When they reached the estate, Mrs. Dahlia opened the door, her face soft with understanding. She took one look at the boys' expressions and said nothing, just ushered them in, wrapping them each in a towel as though warmth alone could shield them. Ethan went straight to Grace's study. He placed Clara's letter beside Grace's half-finished one. The handwriting, side by side, looked like two threads weaving a single promise. He stared at them for a long time. Finally, he whispered, "You always said kindness costs nothing. But you were wrong, Grace. It costs everything. And I'll pay it." He looked toward the window. The rain had stopped. The sky was bleeding pale gold at the edges, the kind of light Grace used to call forgiving light. That night, he tucked the boys into bed himself. Noah was already half asleep, thumb pressed against his cheek. Liam stared at the ceiling. "She's really gone, isn't she?" Liam asked. "Yes," Ethan said quietly. "But she's not gone from you. You carry her here." He tapped his chest. "Right where you keep your breath." The boy frowned. "Is that what you did with Mrs. Ward?" Ethan smiled sadly. "Every day." "Does it stop hurting?" He hesitated, then shook his head. "Not completely. But it changes. One day, it feels less like pain, more like remembering." Liam's eyes filled again. "She said you'd help us. And I will." The boy nodded, closing his eyes. "Then I guess it's okay." Ethan waited until they slept before leaving the room. He paused in the hallway, staring at Grace's portrait. For the first time in years, he didn't feel her absence like a wound. He felt it like a hand resting on his shoulder. "I kept it, Grace," he whispered. "I kept her promise." Outside, the storm broke. Lightning flashed across the hills, followed by a distant rumble that rolled through the valley like a slow heartbeat. Ethan stood at the window, watching the rain fall harder, faster, then fade into a soft drizzle. In that moment, he realized something: every promise Grace had made was now his to finish. Every life she had touched was now his responsibility to honor. He wasn't ready. But he would be. Because when a promise is born out of love, breaking it isn't an option, it's a kind of death all its own. And Ethan Ward had already lost enough. The days that followed were quiet, but not the hollow, aching quiet Ethan had known before. This was a different kind of silence, filled with soft footsteps, laughter echoing down the hall, the faint scrape of chairs on the kitchen floor. It was life, returning. For the first time since Grace's death, the house breathed again. It began with the sound of pancakes. Mrs. Dahlia stood at the stove, apron flour dusted, while Noah and Liam perched on stools watching her flip the batter. The smell of butter and syrup filled the air. Ethan entered, tie half knotted, the newspaper forgotten under his arm. He froze at the doorway, watching. Noah spotted him first. "Mr. Ward. You're awake." Liam grinned. "We're making breakfast. Mrs. Dahlia says pancakes make sad people happy." Ethan smiled faintly. "Does it work?" The housekeeper winked. "We'll find out soon enough." Ethan sat at the table. Noah proudly slid a plate in front of him, slightly burned, oddly shaped pancakes, but he took a bite anyway. It tasted like warmth and childhood. Grace used to make pancakes every Sunday. Always too sweet, always messy, always perfect. He found himself chuckling under his breath. "Not bad," he said. Noah beamed. "Can we do it again tomorrow?" Ethan hesitated, then nodded. "Every Sunday." After breakfast, Liam asked to see the garden. The boys ran ahead while Ethan followed slowly, the crisp morning air carrying laughter across the lawn. The roses had started to bloom again, Grace's roses, which she planted the year they moved in. He hadn't tended them since she died. Noah bent down, sniffing one. "They smell like Mommy." Ethan smiled sadly. She loved them. He knelt beside the flower bed, showing them how to clip the dead petals, how to water the soil just right. Their tiny hands mimicked his movements. When they finished, Noah asked, "Do they grow better when you talk to them?" Ethan paused. "Grace used to think so." Liam frowned. "What did she say?" "She told them stories." "About what?" He looked up, eyes distant. "About people she loved." The boys went silent, then Noah whispered, "Can you tell them about us?" Ethan nodded. "I think she'd like that." By afternoon, the house was unrecognizable. Toys scattered in the sitting room, books on the floor, crayons marking the corner of his desk. Chaos, gentle, joyful chaos. When the twins weren't playing, they followed him around, asking endless questions. Did Mrs. Ward like clouds? Why is your piano sad? Can we name the big dog outside? At first, the questions stung, tiny reminders of what he'd lost. But soon, they began to heal instead, each answer a thread weaving him closer to the world Grace had loved so fiercely. One evening, he found them in the piano room. Noah was pressing random keys, giggling at the sounds, while Liam tried to copy the melody of a song from a music box. Ethan stood behind them. Would you like to learn a song your Mrs. Ward used to play? They nodded eagerly. He sat down, fingers brushing the ivory keys. The melody began slow, tender, rising like breath, Grace's favorite lullaby. As the notes filled the air, something inside him loosened. Liam's voice broke the silence. It sounds like her. Ethan swallowed hard. It does. He finished the song, hands trembling slightly. Noah clapped. Play it again. He laughed quietly, shaking his head. Tomorrow. Liam looked up. Promise? Ethan smiled. Promise. Weeks passed. Each one softer than the last. The media frenzy around Clara's story began to fade. The tabloids had moved on, and the headlines no longer called Ethan Ward the reclusive widower. Instead, whispers about his sudden generosity began to spread, donations to orphanages, hospitals, schools. Quiet, anonymous gifts under the name Grace's Fund. Every evening, after the boys were asleep, Ethan would sit at Grace's desk and write letters, to donors, to hospitals, to strangers, signing them all the same way she used to. Keep the promise. He'd never realized how much peace could come from doing good without applause. Grace had known it all along. One Saturday, he took the boys to the park near the river. It was the first time he'd gone out publicly with them since Clara's death. The city buzzed with spring energy, families picnicking, kites in the air, laughter echoing through open fields. The twins ran ahead, chasing a butterfly. Ethan watched from the bench, sunlight filtering through the trees, his heart unexpectedly light. A woman sitting nearby smiled at him. They're yours? He hesitated. Yes, he said finally. In every way that matters. The woman nodded. You're lucky. He looked toward the boys, who had fallen into the grass laughing. Yes, he murmured. I am. That evening, back home, Mrs. Dahlia found him staring at Grace's portrait. You've changed, sir, she said gently. Have I? You used to look like someone waiting for the world to end. Now you look like someone who's beginning again. Ethan smiled faintly. Maybe I am. She hesitated, then asked, what will happen to the boys? They'll stay, he said simply. If they'll have me. Later that night, the twins appeared at his study door, pajamas rumpled, hair sticking up. Liam held a drawing, a messy crayon picture of three figures standing before a big house, a sun smiling above them. Noah pointed proudly. That's you. And that's us. Ethan took the picture carefully. And who's that? He asked, nodding at the faint figure drawn in the clouds. Mrs. Ward, Liam said. She's watching. Ethan smiled softly. I think she is. He taped the picture beside Grace's portrait. When he turned back, both boys were hugging him around the waist. Good night, Mr. Ward, they said in unison. Good night, boys. They left the door open as they went, a habit he no longer minded. He looked once more at the drawing, at the bright orange sun, the uneven lines of their smiles. For the first time in years, the future didn't scare him. That night, the mansion was still, but not empty. Down the hall, two small heartbeats pulsed softly in the dark. Ethan lay awake, staring at the ceiling, feeling something he hadn't in years: peace. Grace's voice whispered in memory, warm and close. "Love them, Ethan. That's all I ever wanted." He smiled in the dark. "I will, Grace," he whispered back. "I promise." And somewhere beyond the walls, beyond the sky, it felt as though she smiled too. Peace, like glass, never lasts unbroken. 2 months after Clara's funeral, just as Ethan Ward began to feel the warmth of normalcy again, the storm came. Not from the sky, but from the screens. It started with a headline. "Reclusive billionaire caught harboring 2 homeless children in his mansion, what's he hiding?" Then came the photos, grainy telephoto shots of Ethan holding the twins' hands in the park, feeding ducks, smiling for once in years. Within hours, the internet turned cruel. Trying to look like a saint. Where did the kids come from? Some PR stunt before his new foundation launch. By morning, his phone buzzed non-stop. Board members, investors, and journalists. Everyone wanted an explanation. Ethan sat at his study desk, the screen light reflecting in his tired eyes. Liam and Noah were still asleep down the hall. He could already hear the muffled hum of news vans outside the gate. Mrs. Dahlia entered quietly, setting a mug beside him. "They've been calling all morning." He rubbed his temples. "Let them. I've got nothing to say." She hesitated. "You know they'll twist the silence too." He sighed. "They always do." At breakfast, the boys sensed something was wrong. Noah poked at his cereal, watching Ethan. "Are you mad?" "Not at you," Ethan said softly. "At people who don't understand." "Understand what?" Liam asked. He forced a smile. "That kindness doesn't need permission." They didn't understand the weight of his words, but they smiled anyway, trusting him completely. It made the ache sharper. By afternoon, the calls grew worse. His lawyer's voice crackled over the speakerphone. "Ethan, the board wants you to release a statement. They're worried about Grace's fund. Some donors are pulling out, bad optics, they said." Ethan laughed bitterly. "Optics. Of course. Look, you've done nothing wrong. But the press is implying impropriety, people love a scandal. 2 children, unverified adoption. They're not props for a headline." "I know, but this could ruin you publicly." Ethan's hand slammed down on the desk. "Then let it." The room fell silent except for the faint ticking of Grace's old clock. "I won't abandon them," he said quietly. "Not for investors, not for the world." That evening, social workers arrived at the gates. Mrs. Dahlia met them first, but soon Ethan joined her, coat thrown over his shoulders. The twins peeked out from behind him, frightened. "Mr. Ward," the woman said politely, "we received concerns regarding 2 minors under your care. We'll need to assess their living situation." Ethan held her gaze. "They're safe here. They've been through enough." "I understand, sir, but procedures." He cut her off. Procedures didn't save them when their mother was dying in a shelter. The woman hesitated, guilt flickering in her eyes. "We only need confirmation of guardianship." "I'm filing the papers," Ethan said. "Until then, they stay." Behind him, Noah's voice trembled. "Are they taking us away?" Ethan knelt beside him, hand firm on his shoulder. "No one's taking you anywhere. You're family now." The social worker saw the boy clutching his coat, the quiet conviction in Ethan's voice. Something in her softened. She handed him a card. "We'll be in touch. Please, just keep everything above board." "I will," he promised. When the car drove off, the boys still clung to him. He stood there in the drizzle, letting them. The next morning, the headlines doubled in cruelty. Ward defies court inquiry. Who are the twins? A billionaire's secret family? He turned the television off before the boys could see. But Liam had already caught a glimpse. "Are we in trouble?" he asked. "No," Ethan said. "Then why do they hate you?" Ethan knelt. "Sometimes people fear what they don't understand. They'd rather make noise than ask questions." Liam frowned. "Mom said people who shout the loudest are usually the most scared." Ethan smiled sadly. "Your mom was a smart woman." By the end of the week, his company's PR team demanded a press conference. He refused at first. But when a tabloid published a story claiming the twins were being used as charity mascots, he knew silence would only feed the fire. So he called the lawyer. "Set it up," he said. "Tomorrow." The next day, flashbulbs exploded as Ethan stepped onto the stage of a packed conference hall. Cameras pointed at his face, waiting for a stumble, a headline. He took a breath, steady and deep, the way Grace always did before speaking at her charity galas. "2 months ago," he began, "I met 2 boys at my wife's grave." A murmur rippled through the crowd. They were alone, frightened, and calling her name. My wife, Grace Ward, was gone 2 years before that day. Yet somehow, she had already promised them something she never told me, that they'd never be alone. He paused. "I decided to keep that promise for her." Reporters whispered. A few stopped typing. "I didn't take them in for publicity," he continued. "I didn't do it for praise. I did it because love doesn't stop when someone dies, it just finds new hands to carry it." His voice broke slightly, but he didn't hide it. "If that makes me guilty, then I'll answer to it proudly." He stepped away from the podium. The room was silent for a long, impossible second, then applause rose, scattered but sincere. That night, social media shifted. The same clips that mocked him now flooded with comments. Faith in humanity restored. He kept his wife's promise. Maybe angels send people like him. For once, the internet was quiet in reverence instead of rage. Back home, Ethan found the twins waiting at the gate, holding up hand-drawn signs. "We're proud of you, Mr. Ward." He laughed for the first time in days, a sound so free it startled even him. Liam ran to him. "You told them the truth." "I did." "Did they believe you?" Ethan knelt to hug both boys. "They will." The twins clung to him, and the house lights flickered on behind them, glowing warm against the evening sky. For the first time in weeks, the noise outside no longer mattered. Inside these walls, there was only peace, and the unshakable certainty that Grace's promise was still alive, louder than the world's judgment. The storm quieted, but not all storms end with the rain. Some end with revelations. It was late one night when Ethan Ward's past came knocking, not with guilt, but with truth. He sat alone in Grace's study, the flicker of lamplight painting gold across stacks of her old charity files. The boys were asleep upstairs, the house still except for the ticking clock and the whisper of pages turning. Ethan had spent hours combing through her foundation records, donations, letters, receipts. He wasn't sure what he was looking for until he found it, a sealed envelope marked private, for Ethan. His name. Her handwriting. Hands trembling, he opened it. Inside was a letter dated just 2 weeks before her accident. "My love. If you're reading this, I'm gone. And I'm sorry for the pain I left behind. But I need you to know something, about the foundation, about Victor Hale. He's not who he pretends to be. He's been redirecting funds, stealing from the people we're supposed to save. I confronted him. He threatened me. I was on my way to expose him when, well, you know the rest. If I don't make it, promise me you'll finish this. Not out of revenge, but because the truth deserves light. And because those children, Clara's boys, they deserve more than promises. Love always. Grace." The air left his lungs. He gripped the paper tighter, the weight of betrayal mixing with heartbreak. Victor Hale, her old foundation partner, the man who had comforted him at the funeral, who had said, she died doing what she loved. Ethan's eyes hardened. She died because of you, he whispered. The next morning, he called his lawyer. Pull every file related to Grace's fund. Especially those signed by Victor Hale. By noon, his office floor was covered in documents, contracts, emails, bank ledgers. Ethan went through each page, faster and faster, until the pattern appeared: falsified invoices, hidden accounts, stolen millions meant for the orphanage projects. And at the center of it all, Victor's signature. Grace had found out. She'd tried to stop him. And he'd made sure she never got the chance. Ethan's jaw clenched. Mrs. Dahlia peeked into the study. Sir. You haven't eaten. He looked up, eyes fierce. We're going to finish what Grace started. That evening, he met Victor at the foundation headquarters. The man greeted him with the polished smile of a politician. Ethan. Good to see you back in the office. I watched your press conference, impressive. Ethan didn't sit. He placed Grace's letter on the desk between them. We need to talk about this. Victor's smile faltered. What's that? Her handwriting. You remember it. Victor's eyes flicked down, scanning the page. When he looked up again, his expression had changed, calculating, cold. You shouldn't dig into old wounds, Ethan. It won't bring her back. No, Ethan said quietly, but it might stop you from hurting anyone else. He reached into his briefcase and dropped another file, copies of bank transfers, proof of embezzlement. You stole from her foundation. You used her name to launder money through offshore accounts. Victor leaned back, chuckling softly. Do you really think anyone will believe you? You've been a ghost for 2 years. The world thinks you lost your mind over her death. And now you want to start a scandal. Ethan smiled faintly. I don't need the world to believe me. He tapped the folder. I just need the truth. Victor's grin stiffened. Be careful, Ethan. Some truths are better buried. Ethan met his gaze, unflinching. So was she, apparently. The man froze, realizing what he meant. Ethan leaned forward. You threatened her. You killed her. Victor's face drained of color. That's a dangerous accusation. Ethan's voice was calm, deadly quiet. Not as dangerous as the evidence already in the hands of my lawyer. The silence that followed was heavy, sharp as a blade. Finally, Victor spoke, his tone shifting to something like panic. What do you want? Justice, Ethan said. For her. For Clara. For every child you stole hope from. 2 days later, the story broke. Charity executive exposed in multimillion-dollar fraud, investigation led by Ethan Ward. The world that had once mocked him now applauded. Donors returned. The foundation's reputation was restored, not just in name, but in truth. But Ethan felt no triumph. Only relief. That night, he sat in Grace's study again, the boys asleep upstairs, the house quiet. He stared at her photo, candlelight flickering across her smile. I did it, he whispered. You were right. He was dirty. And it's done now. He waited, as if expecting her voice to answer from the silence. It didn't. But somehow, the quiet felt like approval. A week later, a package arrived, no return address. Inside was a flash drive and a letter. Mr. Ward. My name is Detective Rivera. Your wife contacted me before her death. She sent me documents related to Victor Hale's activities. I regret not acting sooner. The evidence she collected not only clears her name, it shows she had diverted part of her personal fortune into something else, an unregistered account under the name, The Grace Project. It appears she was funding individual families directly, one of them belonged to Clara Hayes. Ethan stared at the screen as he opened the attached file, hundreds of names, receipts, letters, photographs. Grace's quiet legacy, buried beneath secrecy. He scrolled until he found one entry. Recipient, Clara Hayes. Amount, $75,000. Note, for the twins. Tell them angels keep their promises. Ethan pressed a hand to his mouth, laughter and grief tangled in his throat. You even planned for this, he whispered. That night, he called the boys into the study. Liam climbed onto the couch, curious. What's that? Ethan turned the monitor toward them. Your mother's name, he said softly. And this, he pointed to the note. This was from Mrs. Ward. She left it for you. Noah squinted, lips moving as he tried to read. Angels keep their promises. Ethan smiled faintly. That's right. Liam looked up at him. Then that means she's still helping us. Ethan nodded. Always will. The boys leaned against him, eyes bright with awe. And in that moment, Ethan realized something. Grace hadn't just left him love, she'd left him purpose. Her kindness had been bigger than grief, bigger than betrayal, bigger than death. The next morning, the news reported Victor Hale's arrest. Fraud, obstruction, and suspicion of involvement in Grace Ward's fatal crash. Justice had finally come. Reporters crowded the mansion gates again, but this time, Ethan didn't hide. He walked out with the twins at his side, hand in hand. Cameras flashed. One reporter shouted, Mr. Ward, what happens next? Ethan paused. Next. He looked down at the boys. Next, we start over. He smiled then, the kind of smile that belonged to the man Grace once loved, reborn after years of silence. That night, the boys found him in the garden, kneeling by the roses. Mrs. Ward's flowers are growing again, Noah said proudly. They're stronger this year, Ethan replied. Liam grinned. Like us. Ethan chuckled. Exactly like you. They watered the flowers together under the moonlight. For a moment, Ethan thought he heard the faint sound of piano music drifting from the house, the same melody Grace used to play. He looked up at the stars, whispering, You kept your promise, Grace. Now it's my turn. Spring returned to the hills. The frost melted from the roses, and the air smelled once more of lilac and rain. The mansion that had once been a tomb now hummed with life. Children's laughter spilled from open windows, the clatter of breakfast plates echoed through the halls, and sunlight painted everything gold. Ethan Ward stood on the balcony overlooking the garden, the same balcony where Grace used to read to him, voice soft over the rustle of pages. Below, Liam and Noah were chasing each other with paper airplanes. Their laughter carried on the wind, bright and alive. He smiled. Not the forced, public kind, but the quiet one Grace used to draw from him with just a look. It had been nearly a year since that night at the graveyard. And yet, not a day passed that he didn't feel her presence somewhere in the house, a warmth in the room, a whisper in the halls, a reminder in the smallest moments that love doesn't die, it transforms. That morning, the boys presented him with something new, a photo album, messy and colorful. We made this. Noah said proudly. Liam grinned. It's all our favorite days. Ethan flipped through the pages, the first time they baked together, their trip to the lake, the day of the press conference. At the end was a picture of Grace's grave, decorated with flowers, teddy bears, and a little sign written in crayon. Thank you for keeping your promise, Mrs. Ward. Ethan's throat tightened. He traced the letters gently, his eyes glistening. She'd love this. Liam smiled. She does. We tell her about it every night. He looked at them, so small, yet carrying so much light. And what does she say? Noah tilted his head. We don't hear words. But we feel warm here. He pressed his hand over his chest. That means she's happy, right? Ethan's voice trembled. Yes, Noah. That means she's happy. Weeks later, Grace's fund reopened publicly, not as a corporate charity, but as a community foundation, led by Ethan and a small team of volunteers. Its new motto was painted across the entrance in bold gold letters. Love never ends, it just finds new hands. At the opening ceremony, Ethan stood on stage, the twins beside him, the press gathered once again. But this time, there were no bright lights or scandalous whispers, just quiet respect. He began slowly, his tone measured, warm. My wife, Grace Ward, believed that every act of kindness outlives us. She used to say, love is the only investment that never fails. He paused, glancing at the twins. I didn't understand that until two boys reminded me what promises are really worth. The crowd watched in silence. Today, this foundation isn't just hers anymore. It belongs to every hand that lifts another. Every heart that refuses to stop caring, even when it hurts. He looked at the audience, investors, workers, orphans, nurses, old friends, and saw tears shining in more than one pair of eyes. Grace used to tell me that legacies aren't built in marble or money. They're built in people. And I see her legacy right here, in all of you. He stepped back, motioning to the boys. These two, they were once called orphans. Today, they are my sons. My family. Noah beamed and waved shyly. Liam squeezed Ethan's hand tight. Applause filled the hall. And for the first time since Grace's death, Ethan didn't feel like a man speaking at a memorial. He felt like a man standing in the middle of her dream. Later that evening, as the sun dipped behind the city skyline, they visited the cemetery again. The boys carried flowers. Lilies and white roses, and a single candle between them. Grace's tombstone gleamed in the fading light. The marble was etched now with new words, added by Ethan himself. She kept her promise. Ethan placed the flowers down gently. Hey, Grace, he murmured, smiling. You were right. Again. The boys knelt beside him. Liam whispered, Hi, Mrs. Ward. We brought you flowers. Noah added softly, and pancakes. We made them for breakfast. Ethan chuckled, blinking fast. She'll love that. They sat in silence for a while, the peaceful kind, where grief and gratitude coexist. The candle flame flickered, its light catching on Grace's name. She'd be proud of you, Dad, Liam said suddenly. Ethan looked at him, startled. What did you call me? The boy hesitated, eyes wide. Is it okay? Ethan's chest ached in the best way. He pulled both boys close. It's perfect. They stayed like that for a long moment, 3 lives woven together by loss, love, and the echo of a promise that refused to die. As they were leaving, Noah tugged on Ethan's sleeve. Can we come back tomorrow? He smiled. We can come back whenever you want. Even just to talk to her. Especially to talk to her. Noah thought about that, then nodded. Good. Because I still have to tell her I beat Liam at chess. Liam scoffed. Only because you cheated. Ethan laughed, really laughed, the sound rolling through the quiet cemetery like sunlight breaking through clouds. That night, back home, Ethan tucked them in. Dad? Liam mumbled sleepily. Do you think Mommy Grace and our mom are friends in heaven? Ethan smiled. I don't think they're friends, Liam. The boy blinked. You don't? He leaned down, his voice low. I think they're sisters now. Watching over all of us together. The boy grinned at that, and within moments, both twins were asleep. Ethan lingered at the door, watching them breathe, 2 small hearts that had turned his grief into meaning. He turned out the light and walked down the hall to Grace's portrait. The candlelight from the table flickered across her smile. Your promise lives on, he whispered. In them. In me. In every laugh that fills this house. He reached up and touched the frame. Rest easy now, my love. You kept your promise. And I'll keep it, too, until the end. A soft wind brushed through the open window. Somewhere outside, the roses rustled, petals swaying as though moved by unseen hands. Ethan closed his eyes, and for the first time in years, he felt whole. The same motif from the hook echoes in the distance, a child's whisper carried on the wind. Mommy, it's so cold, do you think she'll wake up if we talk louder? But this time, the voice fades not in sorrow, but in peace. Because love answered. And love kept its promise.